Hello, this is Mr. Teng. I'm back with another video. This time around, we're going to talk about the PSLE Science 2018. Once again, we're using this book which we bought from popular bookshop. It is the PSLE guide, or like something like a 3-year series from 2016 to 2018, the different types of questions that appeared, and we are of course using a new microphone, so hopefully it sounds much better. So looking at the questions from the past 2018, well, I have a good news and a bad news for you. Well, the bad news is that there is actually no trend. Well, what does it mean by no trend? That means for whatever questions that appeared, they are just random as usual. So every year, I think I talk about the same thing. As usual, they are just random questions from everywhere. So there's no particular trend that I think you should pay attention to. However, there's one thing that is very, very interesting, which I think you should know. So what is this exciting discovery that I have? Now, every year I actually talk about the same thing. Is this word? There's this particular word that has appeared 25 times out of all the questions. Especially I'm talking about for this booklet B. So there's this particular word that has appeared 25 times from question 29 to 40. So from question 29 to 40, there's only like about 11 questions, but there's this word. So what is this word that we're talking about? It is this word called explain. What do we mean by explain? Now, if you can see what I have here, I have highlighted several in red color boxes. So suggest a reason is also something like explain. So you see this question number 29. We have this thing here, and then over here, you can see that this one here. Give a reason here, another one over here. So every question needs you to be able to do this thing called explain. So every student should be able to explain. And this word explain, as I have explained, appeared 25 times out of 11 questions. What this means is that every question has got two explain. So what is the significance of knowing this? Now, you may be wondering, why should I know? What's so important about knowing that it's explain? Well, the truth is that most students actually do not know how to explain, and I'm here to explain to you how to explain. Now, there's actually a very simple rule when you want to learn about how to explain a question and the answers completely. You can refer to a lot of our previous videos to actually talk about that. So we use this very simple technique called the start end technique. Let me write it out for you so you can see what I'm talking about. The start end technique. Okay, so what do we mean by the start end technique? Let's just use an example. I'm going to use an example to show you what exactly do I mean. Now using this particular question to explain what is this start end technique when we are explaining questions so that students will score the maximum marks for the section B, booklet B. So in this particular question, let's take a look. Right? So at first, we are told that unripe bananas are green and contain chlorophyll. So then bananas curve upwards when growing. So suggest a reason why bananas grow upwards. So now what is the start and the end? So the start is actually over here. This is at the beginning they give you this information. So in your answer you definitely have to talk about so unripe bananas are green or contain chlorophyll. And then what is the end? The end is actually this thing that you need to answer. Suggest a reason why bananas grow up. So therefore, you can think of it like therefore, for bananas grow upwards. So your job is to actually find out what is in between. You have to find out what is in between here, and this is actually 1 mark, so intuitively you should know that there shouldn't be too much stuff. So first of all, let's just investigate, right? So unripe bananas contain chlorophyll, blah 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 blah, and therefore bananas needs to grow upwards. Now why do you think they need to grow upward, and why is there this chlorophyll? Now the reason why it needs to grow up is to receive as much sunlight so that it can make food, or you can say carry out photosynthesis. Okay, so by using a start-end technique like that, we know that we have to include this stuff inside your answer. So why is this technique useful? Is because a lot of students, and this is from experience, we see that a lot of them, they just write this as the answer. So what we mean is that in this particular question, they will just write, oh, it's because the unripe bananas contain chlorophyll, full stop. And that, but when you just write this particular answer, you are not actually answering the question. Yes, it is part of the answer, but you don't get the full marks. You're not going to get the full marks because you have not explained why. You know, the explanation why is actually inside here in the beginning, in the middle, right? The meat of this answer is actually in the middle. So you need to include this stuff. So the best way and the most comprehensive and the easiest or the idiot-proof way to tell all the students is we use the start-end technique. What do you mean by the start-end technique? Once again, for every question, you need to identify the start and the end. The end is actually very simple. Just look at this. Why bananas grow up? So it's just right over here. Therefore, bananas need to grow upwards. What is the start? The start is over here. You have to look at the question and figure out what is the start. So start is unripe bananas contain chlorophyll, and you fill in the blanks in between until, and every line has to make sense, one after another, and all the way to the end. So this is the very simple start-end technique of answering question. Now we're going to take a look at another example. So here's another example to show what exactly is this start-end technique. This is actually question 34 about overcrowding over here. So we see the keyword again, explain why growing far apart from one another benefits the plants. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where is the start and the end, or rather what is the start. So what is the starting point of this question? The starting point is that they grow far apart. Growing far apart. And the end is where you have to talk about how it benefits the plants. And your job is to fill in whatever that you can think of in the middle. Let's try and see what we can think of. So when they grow far apart, they do not have to compete. Compete with who? With one another, or with other plants, other young plants. And what are they competing for? They're actually competing for sunlight, water, nutrients. It's competing for sunlight, water, nutrients, etc. And because they do not have to compete for sunlight, water, nutrients, how does it benefit the plant? They can grow healthily, or they can grow bigger, taller, you know. Just talk about how it benefits the plant, because yeah, I mean, when you say that they do not have to compete, it may not be complete. You have to compete for what? Are they running a race? No, they're not running a race. They're competing for sunlight, water, and nutrients. So when they do not have to compete for this, they will grow healthily, and when they grow healthily, it benefits the plants. Can you see that? It flows. So use the start and the end. So as long as you follow this very simple principle called the start and technique, you should be able to score maximum marks for all of the explained questions. And as I've mentioned from the start, there is actually a good news and a bad news. So the bad news was there isn't any trend, but the good news is it's explained again. You know, out of 11 questions, you have 25 explained. That is like 25 marks or about 30 marks out of 44 marks. You know, in this section is total of 44 marks. So about 30 out of the 44. 30 out of 44 is explain. So do you think explaining is important? Of course. Please go and make sure you know how to explain. That's all for the PSLE Science for 2018.
Oh, life ain't a ding dong. If I could take you up in boom boom boom.